Hey, what's up guys? I'm Sal. Thanks for checking out the video. When I bought this car a couple years ago, the interior was in really good shape. The only exception was the dashboard. It had a couple pretty big cracks in it, so I opted to take it out and then fill the cracks and flock it, and that's how it's been ever since. I've never really loved the flocking on it, and when I had the opportunity about a month and a half ago to pick up a new uncracked, pristine OEM dashboard for this car, I just couldn't pass it up. I got a pretty good deal on it, and today we'll be tossing it in here. Pretty excited to see how much it changes the feel of the interior, so let's get into it. Okay, jumping right into it, I decided to start with all the little things here in the center console first. So shift knob, shift boot, then taking out the center console itself. For me, it's just 4 screws up front. I think there's supposed to be 2 more in the back too, but mine didn't have it. Then the bezel for the radio, the air conditioning, and finally the 2 gauges that I have up top. Next, I took out the steering wheel, and I would 100% recommend taking it out. It was a little bit easier for me because I have this aftermarket one in there. With all the easy stuff out, we'll start with taking off this lower panel. There's a couple screws across the front. You can see I'm missing some, but 5 screws across the front and then 1 down here on the bottom. Next up, we'll take off this bezel around the steering column here. So we'll pop out each of these buttons, and then down here, it's just held in with these 2 clips, like that, and that. And then up top, you should have 2 screws. Mine's missing both of those. And then you should be able to pull it out. Definitely be careful with this. I think they're pretty brittle, and you don't want to be buying a new one. Okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Before we can take this out, we got to take these covers off of the steering column. There's 1, 2, 3 screws on this side, and it should be mirrored on the other side as well. Additionally, we're actually going to be disconnecting the steering column from the bottom side of the crash beam behind the dashboard in order to give us better clearance for pulling this out and then also pulling the dashboard out. So let me try and get a good clip for you. So here's the steering column coming up. You can see the bolt on the right and the bolt on the left. These lower ones you'll probably want an extension, and it's a 12mm socket. You can actually see it pretty good from the front right here. Sweet. Okay, next we have access to the gauge cluster. We'll pop it out. You see I have the NX 1600 gauge cluster in here swapped in, so yours might be bolted in a little bit differently. This one's pretty jank. One of the previous owners just used these wood screws, and I mean, it does the trick, but it's certainly not pretty. Okay, over on the passenger side, we got to deal with the glove compartment. The cover is held in with just these 2 Phillips head screws on the bottom, and then the metal frame that it attaches to is held in with 4 more screws, 1 on each corner. Okay, next up we can deal with these defroster vents, and just fair warning, they're gonna be really brittle for you. Mine cracked really bad when I took them out of the car last time, and then when I put them back in, they got even more cracked. So you can see some of these pieces are just falling right out. These other ones are actually in there pretty good, so I'll have to, persuade it to get it out of there. But once you get all of your pieces out, there should be 3 screws, one on either side and one in the middle, holding the dashboard in. Okay, well, unfortunately that went about as poorly as it could have gone. You guys saw, you apply the tiniest bit of pressure and these things just crack on you. I admittedly wasn't being super cautious about it because I do have replacements that I'll be throwing in, but if you want to be reusing these, I would be super cautious when taking them out so that you don't end up like me with a million different pieces. Okay, sweet, it's on its way out. Big thing is just getting it over like the turn signals and wiper stalks and stuff. It just helps to kind of lean on the column like this, and then it really just kind of pulls out. Nice. Looks like we got some connectors down here for the wiring for this glove box light. Disconnect these guys. Okay, so looking at this thing outside, it's still in really good shape. You can't see the cracks anymore, and the flocking looks decent. I've just never been super happy with it because it kind of looks like permanent fingerprints or something all over it. And then around where the gauge cluster is, you can see it's a little bit shiny because I didn't quite get enough flock down. But as critical as I am of it, anytime I've brought the car to a car show, or not a car show, Cars and Coffee, stuff like that, people are always really complimentary of how it came out. And online you see a lot of people talking crap about flocking, but in person I've never actually experienced that. Everyone I've talked to has always actually really enjoyed it, so that's kind of good to know. But over here we have my new dash that I'll be swapping in. You can see it's in really good condition. The only minor defect is up here near where the VIN plate is. There's a little bit of a gouge up there, but honestly, if that's the only thing, I'm really happy with that. It also came with the center air vents. That's where I used to have my gauge pods for boost and air to fuel ratio. I think I'm going to try and move them down below the air conditioning down to here so that I can keep those middle vents. I just think it looks pretty clean. So now I want to talk quickly about how I'm going to protect this new dashboard because I got the uncracked dash now. I don't want to have it crack while it's under my under my ownership. Okay, so what I'm going to be using is this 303 interior UV protectant. I've heard so much good stuff about this thing. Everyone raves about it, and it's kind of the go-to in the community for protecting interior plastics from cracking and other UV damage. So I've never used this stuff before, but pretty sure you just spray it on, wipe it off with a microfiber. have no idea how much stuff to put on, but I'm just gonna do a lot and then rub it in. Okay, cool. While I'm wiping down the dash, check out the shirt that Lowerworxs sent me. It's a small business based out of Germany, and they have a bunch of shirt options, but they do custom shirts. So you can see that's actually my car on the shirt. Super cool. Sasha was a great guy to work with. If you want a custom shirt for your car, reach out to them on the Lowerworxs website. You work back and forth to come up with a good design that you'll like. And I was really impressed with the quality, impressed with the shipping times. Overall, it was just a really good experience. They also have a bunch of, I guess, off-the-shelf designs, which I really love this S2001. It looks super cool. The designs are high quality. Go check out Lowerworxs. Well, I didn't realize how dirty this thing got in storage, but quick wipe down with the 303 protectant, and dang, it looks really good. It's got a nice sheen to it. It's not glossy. It looks like Armorald or anything like that. It just looks like a nice, clean finish, and oh, I'm so excited to get this back in the car. Okay, sorry guys, I hate when I do this, but I forgot to record. Basically, I just have a, what is this? A 1/8 drill bit, and I just put it in the middle of the rivet and drilled it out. You can see the back half just popped out there, and then now we can pop this front plate off. I think this thing's just plastic. Cool, easy as that. So I'll take any opportunity to buy a new tool, and I need to re-rivet this thing down. So I went to Harbor Freight, bought the $10 rivet tool, and this is my first time doing it. It was actually pretty cool. The way it works is you just squeeze the trigger, and then it will kind of squish the bottom part of the rivet up to the bottom side of the dashboard in this case, and it just squeezes that VIN plate down. And then when you get to the end, you squeeze really hard, it actually pulls off the end of the rivet, and came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I didn't love the silver there, so I just shot it with some matte black paint, and when it dried, it matched really well with the rest of the dashboard. Next, you can see getting the dashboard back in the car in a single car garage is a bit of a tight squeeze, but it's definitely super doable. Just think about which orientation it needs to go. I had to bring it out and in a couple times, trying to fit it around the steering column, but yep, just slides right in, and then you can set it right into place. My biggest piece of advice here would be when you encounter a friction point where the dash doesn't want to go in any further, don't just push harder or push in a random spot. I encourage you to take a second to actually find where that friction is coming from and then work from problem to problem there. So in this case, I'm looking at the shift lever, and then I'm looking over at the wiper stock, and if you just kind of work like that, then before you know it, it'll be in its spot without it breaking anything. Okay, so with the dash in place, first of all, looks really nice, but kind of just working backwards, starting with the 3 screws up top. Okay, that ring just fought me for a really long time. I had a hard time getting this one in at first, and then once I got these 3 in, I could not get this one in. So I recommend just getting them all in loosely so that you can kind of shimmy it around and get all the holes to line up, and then you can tighten them all down. Now we'll throw in the glove box itself. Okay, so I started throwing the gauge cluster back in, and I was running into all sorts of fitment issues. It was shifted way up, and I couldn't get it to fit right inside the bezel. And then I remembered, oh crap, the old dashboard was clearanced for this new gauge cluster. So I went out and checked, and these 2 supports over on this side were all shaved down, and then across the bottom, you need to shave out a bunch of this in order to get it to sit down lower. So I just spent like 2 hours off camera doing that. I also pulled the whole gauge cluster apart, cleaned in between all the glass, because there was a bunch of dust behind there, so it looks a lot better now. But yeah, everything fits good. It fits as it did before, which I was getting a little worried that it wasn't. So Cool news, the LEDs in the back make a huge difference. Let me show you. Does that not look so cool? I'm so pumped that I tried to throw the LEDs in there. It makes a pretty big difference actually. It looks so futuristic for, you know, what the 80s or 90s was thinking about. And man, before you couldn't see any of this. I mean, you could, it was just very dim. So the LEDs made a huge difference. Really, really pumped. Made all that extra work worth it. Okay, I didn't want to bore you with reassembling all the easy stuff now, but it just was buttons back in, trim on the steering column there. The lower panels go in exactly like they came out. Put the center console stuff back together, and then last thing was the steering wheel, just getting it bolted back in. Okay, last but not least, cherry on top is going to be the defroster trim. I've been dreading this and putting it off, so it's the very last thing to do. Hopefully it stays intact. The way to do it is just going to be getting the front in first, and then once that in, slowly pressing in the back. So I think this one's going to go in. Well, it's the long one on the other side that's going to be a big pain. So let's see. Okay, so far so good. So this piece actually came broken when I bought it. I had super glued it together and I thought it was pretty strong, but even just moving it around to get it ready for this ended up breaking. So obviously super brittle. This one's a lot longer, so we'll see how this side goes. But I'm just gonna follow the same idea. Nice and easy, starting from the back, working forward, working my way down. Okay, cool. That'll do it for today. I'm pretty happy with how it went. Took me a solid afternoon, but you know, filming had some time, and then I spent like 2 hours just working on this freaking gauge cluster. So I think it's pretty doable. Some dude has a video on YouTube where he does the whole thing, taking it out, putting a new one in like 45 minutes. It's crazy. I think it's even less than that. It's like 35 minutes. But yeah, you only need like one Phillips head screwdriver. You need a 12mm socket for disconnecting the steering column from that front crash brace. And I really can't think of anything else that you need. But yeah, before and afters I'm really happy with. I just really like this clean look. It just flows better with the doors and the center console, and it matches this nice new leather steering wheel pretty well actually. So yeah, overall really happy with it. Gotta maybe deal with the defroster vent at some point. I gotta take the glass out, it's cracked. So maybe while the glass is out, I can maybe play around with that. But otherwise, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and have a great rest of your day.